Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. It seems like pretty much every week in the run-up to the podcast, I go into a slight panic mode, trying to figure out what am I going to talk about. That is not the case this week. In fact, I've got way too much material. I've got easily enough material for 2 podcasts, so I'm kind of trying to figure out how I'm going to split them up. I've got my notes down here. But grab your favorite morning beverage and let's get going. Since we are in a new month, it's time for another little segment on 24 and 21. For those of you who are new to the podcast, 24 and 21 is my take on New Year's resolutions. Instead of one big resolution that I wind up falling off the wagon on, probably by mid-January, instead I decided to pick smaller resolutions, smaller habits that either I wanted to create or break. Each month I will choose one positive thing that I want to do. Perhaps it's a long-term habit that I add, or maybe it's just something that I know if I do for 30 days, it'll be done, it'll be taken care of. I also, each month, take one negative thing, or a wasteful thing, or something that just saps my energy or causes problems for me, and seek to eliminate that. So each month, 2 things. 2 times 12 is 24 in the year 2021, so 24 and 21. One of the things that I've discovered, though, is as these start stacking on one another, I'm finding myself having a lot of habit-type things that I need to do on any given day. I think maybe as I look to next year, I'm probably going to just look at one thing per month that I try and do, because the deeper I'm getting into the year, the harder I'm finding it to stick with this. And October was a prime example of that. So first off, the positive thing that I wanted to do was start going through the Serious Keto website, looking at all of my recipes, and then I had a spreadsheet where I would list them, and then I had a bunch of different columns, things like, are there any special ingredients required? Are there any special equipment required? I had some stuff in there for my notion on recipe sequencing. So are there any prerequisite recipes that feed into this recipe? Does this recipe itself feed into other recipes? Are there things that can be done with the leftovers from this recipe? Are there partner recipes that might go with it? So if this is a main course, what's a good side dish? Have I double-checked the recipe on the website for accuracy? Have I included both metric and imperial measurements? Do I have a good picture? A picture that I could use for a cookbook? All of these things are what I wanted to capture in this spreadsheet, and I wanted to do about 5 a day. I figured if I did 5 a day, that would be pretty close to my content that's out on the website. I think I did 15 in total. I'm just not really into administrative tasks. I found this was really the case in my career at GE, when I would be a facilitator for like a lean event or a business negotiation or something like that. I'm pretty good at the creative aspects and being the master of ceremonies. Not very good at note-taking. So as a manager, I would always make sure that the people I hired and were on my team were very good at the administrative tasks, that they could basically cover that gap in my skill set or aptitude. So yeah, didn't do a good job on the spreadsheet. The negative that I wanted to get rid of was a lot of clutter around the house. And I did a slightly better job at that. I did some pantry decluttering, and as a result, we wound up having this giveaway that I announced on Friday, which I think I'll have to talk about later, because that turned out to be a lot bigger thing than I thought it was going to be. But if I were to grade myself on October, the spreadsheet, that's an F. That is a serious, serious F. The declutter, that's a D, maybe a D minus. So didn't do a great job in October. For November, I want to keep working my way towards progress on the cookbook. But instead of the spreadsheet, I'm going to attack specifically a column in the spreadsheet, which is, do I have a good picture for whatever food item it is? And this is also going to have me go back and look at some of my earlier videos where the thumbnails just aren't all that good. So I'm going to start replacing my thumbnails, going back 2.5 years. Hopefully they'll look a little bit classier. So that's my positive, and like I said, it feeds into the whole cookbook thing. So I feel like I'm still having some momentum there. The negative that I want to get rid of is lack of security electronically for me. So and those of you that are in IT are just you're gonna freak out when you hear this. I've got a spreadsheet that lists all of my passwords. Now, fortunately, I don't have it out on the cloud or anything, but I've got 244 different websites and apps on this spreadsheet and all of their associated passwords. And it's just, that's not a secure thing. It's not as bad as a Post-it note on the side of your monitor with your passwords, but I've installed LastPass and I'm starting to go through and setting up everything very encoded. I'm looking at two-factor authentication for a number of different things, just because I feel that Serious Keto has gotten to a size that if somebody decided they wanted to try and hack my account or something like that, that would be horrible. So my getting rid of the negative is getting rid of a lack of security, and so far I'm kind of digging LastPass. It seems like a pretty slick app. So now it's your turn. How'd October go for you, if you're still playing along with 24 and 21? And what are you going to do in November? What's the positive that you're going to try and add? What is the negative, or whatever we want to call it, the unproductive thing you want to get rid of? Let me know down in the comments below. Next, I have a little bit of a channel update. Two things. One, I'm continuing to work on the My Keto Pantry series. I already did the flours and a couple of little add-ins, so sort of baking adjuncts, I guess we'll call them. Probably the next one that I'm going to do is sweeteners. I know that the next two that I'm going to do are sweeteners and thickeners. Thickeners is turning out to be a bit of a monster. So for the top two tiers of my paid channel members, which are the sous chef and executive chef tiers is what I call them, I do a monthly kitchen live stream where I'm either working on a recipe that I haven't worked on before or doing some sort of goofy kitchen experiment, like working with thickeners. And that's what I did in last month's, I guess, well, yeah, now that you're watching this, it's November 1st, so it would have been in October's live stream. And I think I've got like 9 different thickeners on my spreadsheet, and I'm testing things like how well do they dissolve? Do they require shear? Do they dissolve in cold or thicken in cold? Do they thicken in heat? Does its behavior change when you go from cold to hot or hot to cold? Are there interactions? And what I discovered is that there is a lot of stuff going on with thickeners. And there are some very interesting interactions that I've discovered, including I figured out how to make slime. Like, for those of you children of the 70s and you recall the little green trash cans and it had that slime in it, it was really kind of cool stuff until it started getting dirty. You want to make sure you were playing with it on a clean surface. And it didn't stick to your skin or anything. It didn't stick to surfaces. And it was the same case with this slime that I made. It was kind of interesting. And it makes me wonder if there's some way that I can get the ratios right to make keto jelly. So without pectin or, tons of sugar, can I make a keto jelly using a couple of these thickeners that isn't slimy or gross mouthfeel or anything like that? I also discovered some interesting interactions in terms of flavor on some of these thickeners. I forget which one it is. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that live stream. But there's one that, it might have been guar gum, that really has sort of a brown plant taste. Like it tastes like if you grabbed a leaf, an autumn leaf off the ground, or a twig or something like that. But anyhow, long story short, unless it's too late for that, thickeners is probably going to take a while because I want to make sure that I do it right and that it's not boring. So probably sweeteners will be the next one. The other channel update, and this is something you can help me out with. I'm trying to keep my videos organized into some nice playlists. And I may break some of these up a little bit more because some of them have gotten a bit large. But one of the things that one of my viewers told me about is they were looking at I think it was the Resistant Starch playlist, and in it they saw a die-cast car racing video and a music video from Flight of the Conchords. And the only way I can figure that they got in there is my grandson Colton. He likes getting on my iPad and watching YouTube, and he's gotten very good at finding kids videos, and he loves these die-car racing videos. I forget which one of my viewers recommended it to me, but the channel is called 3D Bot Maker, I believe. Super fun stuff. If you've got kids that are 2 or 3 years old and you want them just distracted watching cars, they do a great job. I have no idea how he got Flight of the Conchords in there, but somehow I think as he was punching around on my iPad, he hit add to playlist and they wound up in my starch list. So if you ever see anything that seems really out of place in one of my playlists, don't hesitate to let me know. You can just let me know in the comments. I see every single comment, so I'll catch it. And on the topic of comments, a couple minutes ago, I mentioned the pantry giveaway video that I did on Friday. This thing turned out to be a far bigger monster than I expected. Basically what I said is if you want to be entered into the giveaway, well, actually first I'll link to it up here on the outside chance you haven't seen it, but I said if you want to be entered, just leave a comment, any comment. And in the first 24 hours, I've gotten 1,500 comments. And I go through all of my comments. So you'll notice that you probably, if you left a comment, you got a heart. That's how you know that I read it. If you didn't get a heart, maybe I just missed it because 1,500 comments is a lot of comments to go through. But where was I going with this? Comments. Oh yeah, I see all the comments. I think that's what I was driving at. I'm going to actually, at the end of this episode, I'm going to come back to this topic because it's kind of important to me, and I'm going to share something that's a little bit emotional with you, and I kind of prefer to save those for the end of the video. So we'll save that for the end of the video, and right now we'll take a brief little ad break. From time to time, I do a segment I call Keto in the News. This is when I see a news story show up in my Google News feed multiple times and figure, all right, this must be interesting enough to include it in the podcast. The first is rumors are once again swirling about the Apple Watch 8 and that it will have a blood glucose monitor, a non-invasive blood glucose monitor. So apparently Apple has filed for some patents and they've either partnered with or acquired some companies that do non-invasive blood glucose monitoring or are working on it. And essentially it is a short wavelength infrared sensor that is built into the Apple Watch that supposedly can read your blood glucose. I think that if this is true, this is going to be an absolute game changer, for keto especially, or any low carb. I'd said in last week's podcast that I thought the biggest friend to keto was the standard American diet, because eventually everyone's going to get type 2 diabetes and come on over to keto, hopefully. I'm going to change my stance on that. I think that being able to have a wearable blood glucose monitor is going to be the biggest friend to keto. There's a saying in the business world, what gets measured gets managed. And if people can see the impact that certain foods, especially those foods in the standard American diet, have on their blood glucose, they're going to change. That is my belief. That's the reason people try and get 10,000 steps. If you didn't have a watch or a Fitbit or whatever it is that's measuring this stuff, who'd care? Who'd care about 10,000 steps? Now, this same rumor had come out about a year ago about the Apple Watch 7. And when I talked to my friends at Keto Mojo and at Levels Health, they felt that that probably wasn't going to happen. The timing just wasn't there. It was too soon. But maybe it will on Apple Watch 8. And one of the things that I think might be a little bit of a hint that it's going to happen is iOS 15, which I haven't installed yet. In the Health app, it now includes blood glucose as something that's measured. Now, granted, it does require an external device, but the fact that they have it in there now, I see this as being a place where Apple is going to play, and I am thoroughly excited about that. Also in the news, Tom Brady. I talked about Tom Brady and the TB12 diet and how essentially it felt an awful lot like keto to me. Essentially, he avoids grains and sugars. That's the major part. They don't talk about how much fat he consumes or anything like that, but I talked about how it was mildly ironic, or at least incongruent, that he's a spokesperson for Subway, given the fact that he doesn't eat bread. Well, Subway has announced that they have partnered with a company called Hero Labs that makes bread that is 1 net carb. In the article in Ad Age, and I'll include it down in the description below, Initially, they say it's a 1-carb bread, but it is 1 net carb. This bread has 26 grams of fiber in it. So I don't think anybody that eats it is going to have a problem staying regular. It is going to be test marketed in, I wrote it down here, have to refer to this, didn't memorize it, in Savannah, Georgia, Des Moines, Iowa, Colorado Springs, and Boise, Idaho through mid-December. So if you are in one of those test markets and try this out, I'd love to hear what you think of it. Does it taste like bread? Is it any good? I also don't know if there are any other ingredients in there that might be sort of on my sketchy list. It seems so many of these breads contain soybean oil. So if anybody can find out if this Hero Labs bread, I mean, I could probably Google it myself, but hey, I'll give you the homework. Does this bread have anything that might fall onto the no-go list? Anyhow, like I said, if you try it out, please let me know. I'd be very interested. And with that, I'm going to segue into the final segment of this podcast, talking about comments. I know I talk about comments a lot, but as I've said in the past, that to me is such a big part of this channel, my interaction with all of you. And sometimes it may not feel like a two-way street. You may feel like, oh, you're just leaving a comment and you're not necessarily getting a comment back. That's because I get a ton of comments. But know that I'm always reading, know that I'm always listening, and know that I'm always appreciative. And this was especially a big deal to me last week. So last week I was sick. It was only like the second time in over 2.5 years on keto that I've been sick. I'm 95% sure the first time was COVID. This time it was from Colton. Colton went on a play date with another kid, and this kid was snotting it up, and so Colton got sick, and he was snotting and sneezing and coughing for a week, and I think eventually I succumbed to that. And I don't know if I succumbed to that because I broke keto like a week or two ago, and maybe that lessened my resistance. It's possible because, like I said, 2.5 years on keto, and I haven't had so much as a sniffle except for these 2 occasions. Anyhow, it was a cold flu combo, and I was feeling pretty beat down physically. And when you're beat down physically, you can feel a little beat down emotionally as well. And this period of feeling beat down coincided with some especially nasty comments that I received in the comment section. Where else would they be? And normally, I've actually gotten pretty good at just blowing these things off. To me, a nasty comment is like a gnat. It's just like, go away. You're not going to bother me. I mean, I can't let it bother me. This is not my problem that these people have got, anger and nastiness and stuff inside them. That's their problem. Move along. But there were a few that were just brutal, like as mean-spirited as anything that has been said to me in the comments. I probably got 3 of the top 5 just black-hearted, nasty comments that I've ever received last week, and it was one of those where, probably because I was sick and not feeling well, and it was one of those where you're just like, why do I do this? Why do I subject myself to this sort of behavior? Nobody deserves this. And then I did the giveaway thing. And like I said, 1,500 comments. And what I was expecting was basically people just putting in a comment. Just any comment. Here's my comment. Pick me. And what I got... Excuse me, that was not choking up right there. That was just, I need a sip of tea. Sorry about that. What I got was such an immense outpouring of affection. So many people telling me how much they love the channel, or love my voice, or love my recipes, or how I've helped them lose 80 pounds or take their A1C down 4 points, that I've changed their lives. And that was the reminder for me why I do this. Because, yeah, there's a couple of turds out there in the world, and they're miserable and they want to make other people miserable. And then there's the rest of you, which is the vast, vast majority of you. And I love you guys. You mean the world to me. I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for you. And I'm so very grateful to have you tuning in to my channel. I can't say it often enough. Thank you. Thank you for watching or listening.